So let's talk about how I made this little guy super cute, doing his little walk into the frame, and then jumping on and smushing the life out of this bad actor. So I knew that I wanted to make something to show you guys that was a character kind of walking through a space and then interacting with something because first of all, this is great practice to actually work on yourself if this is, the kind of thing that you'd be interested in animating. And it's a good stepping stone for, if you want to make a short film, if you want to have a character do something, this is a pretty good way to start it out. Like I've already gotten very attached to this guy, and I'd love to make more stuff with him in it, and figure out what's going on with these mushrooms. So let's start at the beginning. So this is where it all began, and there's no animation in this file. It's just when I was throwing ideas around, drawing a little like baby, I don't know, I guess I was feeling a Godzilla vibe, and thinking like, oh, maybe he'll come in and like smash this building or something. I don't know. And then once I had kind of sketched this out, I was like, this is something. So I'm gonna jump out into a new file and see where I can take that. And so I started out with a very rough walk cycle. And this is not how the walk cycle, well, just the walk really, this is not how it plays out in the actual animation. But what's great is you don't have to get it right the first time. I just kind of wanted to get the idea, like, how is it going to feel for him to walk across? How does his body work? And then what's he going to do? I guess he'll jump on this building and stomp it. And how is that going to work? And so I have the ideas here, but it's all really stiff compared to how it comes out in the end. This was really good for me to figure out a vague idea of timing. What do I want him to do? Because it's possible I could have sketched this and been like, I don't really like the idea of him jumping on that thing. Fortunately, I think it's cute, but it just came together a little bit differently than it will after some refinement. So once I had gotten this out, and I'm like, okay, well, I know the idea is good. Now I just want to make it cute. I want to give him some character. I want the timing to feel better, work on the drawings a little bit more. So I will jump out and in. And for this one, I knew the jump was going to be an important action. So I still have that walk in here pretty much untouched, but I'm starting to work more on the jump. There's more drawings in there. Done a little bit more on the posing. You can see that I've started to add a little bit more volume to his legs. And how he comes down. And then I thought it'd be funny if he checked under his feet at the aftermath. So that was another little experiment that I threw in here, and then I liked it. But look how rough these drawings are. So rough. His arms just kind of turn into nothing, and then are little like nubs here. So just another iteration. And now I'm starting to feel like, okay, I know what I want him to do. I'm getting a better feel for this. Now I want to figure out what he's like as a character. And so in this file, I started to lock that down. What are his actual proportions? What does he look like when he's in midair? What do his feet look like? So let's look at this. This is only the jump. And it was at this part that I knew what I wanted. I even had the timing down pretty well. But the other drawings before were basically perfectly in profile, like perfectly from the side. And now I have him sort of angled 3/4 to the camera. Because I thought that was just a little bit more fun. You can get a little bit more of the depth of his body and like his legs as he's jumping up in the air if you sort of turn this way. And then I'm adding in a little bit of stuff, like his hands are there a little bit better, his eyes are there. It's still not quite perfect to me, but this is all just like getting the juices of my brain more in tune with how I want the outcome to be, and then just familiarizing myself with his shapes and how I sort of want his expressiveness to be. And so once I had that in a pretty good spot, I'm going to come here and do the walk. And so this, as I play it back, you'll see is pretty different. And this I felt pretty good about. And then I just included that jump at the end where I'm starting to include those little ridges on his back. Not much more else of a change. But this was really helpful. I spent quite a bit of time on this, and you can see I'm using hold frames here to change the timing, and not just to figure out how I want the final timing to be, but so I can really look at this. Like, I like to have it play back slowly. I believe I had set the frame rate down. It might just be 8 in the final too, though. But that is something too. Also, if you really want to be able to kind of carefully get a look at it, just drag your frames per second down to like 2 or 1. And it kind of gives you a little bit of like a slow slideshow that you can really stare at the stuff that you made and see if you feel good about it. But at this point, I went over and over his legs. And you'll also notice his height is changing now. So I drew a little line on the background layer here to get his height on what I would consider a keyframe. This is basically the first drawing I worked on where I was like, this is the one that I like. Him looking at the building like this is important. That feels good to me. So I took that height measurement and I'm using that as a reference for myself mentally to see like, how is he bobbing as he walks? Because that's important to show a little bit more dynamism. Like if you want to go back and look at this oh no, not this one. Sorry. This where he has this like very awkward walk in and he's just like looking straight and like walking across, like that looks very robotic. And walk cycles are really fun to practice for many reasons, but one of them too is to just get an idea of like when I take a step, like at what point in my step am I kind of like my leg is straight and I'm like elevated up, kind of my head is up. And then like when you step forward, you know, you're more likely to like be a little bit more down. And that is a pretty significant part of making a walk look natural. And so I filled that in a little bit more. And I went back and I refined his designs a little bit more even. And you'll notice here, he's a little too tall. So I did go back and change this in one of the later files we'll see, but he's short. And then I made him a little too big in these end frames. So it's something that I'm always looking for stuff like that as I'm playing it back. Like, does this look right? Is he landing right? And I think, yeah, that's more of the same. But this is about when I had like cleaned all of his lines up. And I'm feeling pretty good about this animation. So to me, this is about like, all right, this is about final as far as our main man goes. So next step, take him over into his own project file without the background. And just like I did on those other ones, I do my line art and then color. And here he is. So here I was already feeling pretty good about him. But it was at this point that I was like, well, do I want him to have smash a building? Like, I don't know if that's the energy that I'm going for here. I think, you know, I kind of want something maybe more cute. And like, how can I get those mushrooms back in here? I don't know. Maybe it'll be like a Goomba-esque, you know, from Mario type, like a mushroom little monster or something that, and this is, you know, a good guy doing a good thing by jumping on it. And so, ignoring this one for now, I was like, well, that's a really cute idea, so I'm going to design him. And that's all that's going on here in this file. I just took 1 or 2 of those frames of the monster so that I could see the mushroom in there. You can see I have some other layers in here where I was kind of just playing around with the thickness of the lines for him. And I ended up just coming up with this little design that I thought was cute. And he doesn't need to be, you know, doing anything. But once I got to this point, I was like, well, you know, he's going to get squished. So how can we animate that in a cool way? Now, because Procreate is the way that it is, it's not totally flexible in terms of adding animation of different things simultaneously to one timeline. There's no multiple timelines. It's just the one you've got and then the layers and the folders and that kind of thing. So when I'm working on something like this with multiple animated elements, I will usually animate each element in its own file, like in its own canvas, and then comp them back together. And for this one, the final is all in Procreate because it's fairly simple. And we'll get into this more in the last chapter, which I'm excited to show you all about. When you want to really take it to the next level, you can bring this, into your computer and using Adobe software, comp it together in After Effects, and you can add effects or add secondary motion to things. And it just gives you a lot more options to play around with. I love it. I use it for work and for fun all the time. But let's just jump in here to see the mushroom and what happened with him. So there is the animation. It's going by so fast because I didn't include any of the walk. So you barely get a glimpse of him here at the beginning. But that's all I needed. So for this file, I actually just started with this frame. And then I had brought him in, as you saw in the other file. And I used that. Let's look in here. So each layer of this animation, each frame of this animation is like a group, a layer group. And it has a still, like a flattened image of my monster, and then all of the elements I need for the mushroom in it. So for the next frame, because I know that this is the next frame in the monster animation, I drop him in here, and then I added this this squash frame of this like little mushroom guy. And then I took the next frame of the animation and put it in here as reference. And this is sort of, I guess, like toxic spores. And then so on until he dissipates. And then just so I could get a sense of what it would be like, I put in those last two frames of him looking at his feet. And now to bring it all together in animation, and I'll get back to the background really quickly because that's pretty simple. But in animation, if you go into the final file, and here we have it, just one quick playback of him squishing him, bad guy. Now every layer again, or every frame is a layer group, and I have this same mushroom in every single one up until the point that he gets squished. And that's how we have him there up until the end. And that is a bit clunky. So this is something that I might have brought into Photoshop and then into After Effects for, depending on, what I want the final to look like, because then I don't have to do that. I can sort of have this one file. I can set it up in a different way that I don't have to duplicate this mushroom so many times. But for something like this, it's kind of quick and easy. It's not a huge deal. It's just something to keep in mind. And that's what's so great about combining Procreate with Photoshop and then with After Effects, is how much you can take all the cool stuff you could do in Procreate and then just like push it that much farther or make it easier on yourself. Like I might have added like an eye tracking motion on the mushroom where he's watching the monster walk up to him, being all like, like scowling, how he does. But to me, that would be easier to build something like that in After Effects than frame by frame do that. It just doesn't feel worth it for this piece when it's so not the focal point. But that's something that maybe I can show you in the next lesson, is how to do little things like that can really add a lot. Because another thing is, like, if you wanted maybe these clouds to be sort of like scudding across the sky, that's not something that you can really do super easily in Procreate unless you want to duplicate those clouds every single frame and move them a little bit over and move them a little bit over. That's something you can do much more easily in After Effects that could add a lot potentially, depending on the level of depth that you're going for. And so the last thing that I want to talk about is the environment which is super easy to throw together in here. And again, definitely some cool ways to push that if you want to take it to the next level and start using some 3D space or something like that in After Effects. We'll get to that. But for this, you can just do a lot with foreground and background in Procreate, because it's important to keep in mind that the background and the foreground layers can be layer groups. So I have a bunch of different stuff going on in each one. And so this is the background. I'll just go ahead and rename that background right now. And if I toggle that off, you can see what all is in the background. I have my clouds and the cloud line art, all of the mountains and these like little more foreground, but still technically in the background, bushes. And there are a couple of the mushrooms back there, which I love. So initially when I was designing this, all the mushrooms that were good and wholesome were on the foreground layer. And as he was going by, he was kind of blocked by that purple mushroom in the back, and I didn't like it. Let's see if I still have that here. Yeah, see, I have these two still here, and there we go. So he's cut off a little bit. I guess I might not have the walk layers in this one because this was purely to design the background in this file. But I didn't like seeing these little like spore clouds being behind those. I felt like it was making it feel like more flat than I wanted it to. And so I just cut those out and I put them in the background layer and change the color so they kind of fade out a little bit. But I feel like it's a nice effect for him to be walking through here and walk in front of that and have the cloud be fully visible. It just adds a little bit of charm to it, I think. So that is my overall process for tackling larger scenes, more complicated scenes. I'm really excited to get into the final lesson where we're going to get into bringing it all together in your computer. Thanks so much.